विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे सर्वशास्त्रार्थ पीयूष सर्ववेद सत्फल सर्व सिद्धांत रत्नाढ्य सर्वलोकैक दृक्पद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद् भागवत प्रभो करिध्वान्तोदितादित्य श्री कृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेम वर्षक्षराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्या श्री कृष्णाय नमोस्तु मे मदेक बंधो मत्संगिन मद्गुरो मन महाधनम अनिस्तारक मद्भाग्य मदानंद नमोस्तुते असाधु साधुतादाय नतनी चोच्चताकर आनमुच्च कदाचिन मां प्रेमणा उत्कंठे स्फुर ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय 1 minute. 621 2.4.21 यदंघ्र्यभिध्यान समाधि धौतया धियानुपश्यन्ति हि तत्त्वमात्मना वदन्ति चैतत् कवयो यथा रुचम समय मुकुंदो भगवान प्रसीदताम. It is the personality of God Shri Krishna who gives liberation by thinking of his lotus feet at every second, following in the footsteps of authorities. The devotee in trance can see the absolute truth. The learned mental speculators, however, think of him according to their whims. May the Lord be pleased with me. Jnanapradattvamannusmarannaha yadanhriti dvabhyam. And then Shukadeva Goswami remembers that Lord Krishna is the one who bestows knowledge, understanding, realization, and speaks two verses beginning with the text beginning with Yadantri. Yasya ankhriyor anudhyanamevar samadhihi tena dhautaya shudhitaya. So he's talking about these persons who continuously meditate on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And such continuous meditation, uninterrupted meditation itself is samadhi. And through such samadhi, they are purified. Yatha rucham, ruchyanusarena saguna nirgunadi bhedai. Yadva ruk pratibha. Yatha matiti arthaha. The word yatha rucham can mean they meditate on him either as being personal or being impersonal and so on. Another meaning of yatha rucham is according to the extent of his intelligence. तादृश अनुभवे कारणम उपन्यस्यनाह. He then presents the cause for experiencing the Supreme Lord the way he is experiencing. Yadantri. Atmanah Bhagavatah Tattvam Yatharthyam. The devotee in trance can see the truth about the Supreme Self, who is the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of God. Anyatha tu, otherwise, Avayaha, Panditam Manyaha, those who consider themselves to be scholars. Yatharucheva vadanti ityarthaha. They simply speak according to their own tastes, yadva, or else. Tathapi ananta mahimatvad, tebi kavayaha, yathatma prakashameva vadanti iti. Because Lord Krishna's glories are endless. Even the scholars, the real scholars, they speak as much they speak according to the extent of their self-realization. स श्रीकृष्ण एव मे ज्ञानप्रदः भवतु इति प्रार्थनां व्यञ्जयति. Srila Sukadeva Goswami now reveals a prayer that may Lord Sri Krishna himself bestow knowledge upon me. यदङ्घ्रियोरभिज्ञानमेव समाधिर्न तु ततः अन्यः तेन शोधितया. The meditation that is discussed here, thinking of his lotus feet at every second, is for those who are engaged in such meditation on Krishna's lotus feet and nothing else but that, and therefore they are purified. Chakaraha tu arthe. The word cha here, where does that come? Vadanti cha. Cha means also, but cha can also mean but in certain contexts. So here cha can mean but. But the scholars. So Panditya Baleneva Yatharucham Swaswarucha Anusarena Etat Paramatmanaha Tattvam Swarupam Sakaram Nirakaram Jivatma Swarupam Anupramanam Sarvagatam Va. So the scholars, by the strength of their own Panditya, scholarship, they speak in accordance with their respective tastes about the nature of this supreme soul. So they, some of them say that he has a form, some say he is formless, some think that he is the Jivatma, or who is having a minute dimension, minute measurement, or that he is actually the Jivatma who is all pervasive. So in that way, they come up with various speculations. Yadva, another meaning. Etad Vishwam, Mithya eva, Satyam eva, Nityam eva, Ityevam vadanti. Yuktya pratipadayanti. Otherwise, these scholars, they talk about this world in according to their tastes. So some say this world is mithya, false. Some say it is true. Some say it is as if eternal. Wait, I need to confirm that the reading is right. So what I will do, I will look at another edition. So they speak in this way in accordance with their logical understanding. So this they establish simply on the basis of logic. Natu tesham dhihi dhauta. But their intelligence is not purified. Ataha atmanaha tattvam na pashyanti. Therefore, they don't see the truth about themselves correctly. The mystic yogis, after a strenuous effort to control the senses, may be situated in a trance of yoga just to have a vision of the super soul within everyone. But the pure devotee, simply by remembering the Lord's lotus feet at every second, at once becomes established in the real trance, because by such realization, his mind and intelligence are completely cleansed of the diseases of material enjoyment. The pure devotee thinks himself fallen into the ocean of birth and death and incessantly prays to the Lord to lift him up. He only aspires to become a speck of transcendental dust at the lotus feet of the Lord. The pure devotee, by the grace of the Lord, absolutely loses all attraction for material enjoyment. And to keep free from contamination, he always thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord. King Kulashekara, the great devotee of the Lord, prayed, कृष्णत्वदीयपदपङ्कज पञ्जरान्तमद्यैव मे विशतु मानसराजहंसः प्राणप्रयाणसमये कफवातपित्तैः कण्ठावरोधनविधौ स्मरणं तु तस्ते. My Lord Krishna, I pray that the swan of my mind may immediately sink down to the stems of the lotus feet of your Lordship and be locked in their network. Otherwise, at the time of my final breath, when my throat is choked up with cough, how will it be possible to think of you? Kundamala Stotra 33. There is an intimate relationship between the swan and the lotus stem. So the comparison is very appropriate. Without becoming a swan or Paramahamsa, one cannot enter into the network stems of the lotus feet of the Lord. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, the mental speculators, even by dint of learned scholarship, cannot even dream of the absolute truth by speculating over it for eternity. The Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to such mental speculators. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati used to say, Krishna has all rights reserved. And because they cannot enter into the network stems of the lotus feet of the Lord, all mental speculators differ in their conclusions. And at the end, they make a useless compromise by saying, as many conclusions, as many ways, according to one's own inclination. Yatha rucham. But the Lord is not like a shopkeeper trying to please all sorts of customers in the mental speculator exchange. The Lord is what he is, the absolute personality of God, and he demands absolute surrender unto him only. The pure devotee, however, by following the ways of the previous acharyas or authorities, can see the Supreme Lord through the transparent medium of a bona fide spiritual master. Anupashyanti. The pure devotee never tries to see the Lord by mental speculation, but sees him by following in the footsteps of the acharyas. Mahajano yena gatasya panthaha. So, this is an important point, that the pure devotee of the Lord does not try to understand the Lord by his own strength, by looking at Shastra, by his own research and so on. He tries to understand how the Mahajanas have understood it. He also has a clear understanding of who is a Siddha Purusha and a Sadhaka Purusha. He has a clear understanding of this. Krishna himself helps him understand all these things. If we have a pure desire to please Krishna, then Krishna gives us the intelligence to understand him. Therefore, there is no difference of conclusions amongst the Vaishnava acharyas regarding the Lord and the devotees. Lord Chaitanya asserts that the living entity Jiva is eternally the servitor of the Lord and that he is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord. This tattva of Lord Chaitanya's is shared by all four sampradayas of the Vaishnava school, all accepting eternal servitude to the Lord even after salvation. And there is no authorized Vaishnava acharya who may think of the Lord and himself as one. This humbleness of the pure devotee, who is 100% engaged in his service, puts the devotee of the Lord in a trance by which to realize everything. Because to the sincere devotee of the Lord reveals himself as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10.10. The Lord, being the Lord of intelligence in everyone, even in the non-devotee, favors his devotee with proper intelligence so that automatically the pure devotee is enlightened with the factual truth about the Lord and his different energies. The Lord is revealed not by one's speculative power or by one's verbal jugglery over the absolute truth. Rather, he reveals himself to a devotee when he is fully satisfied by the devotee's service attitude. Sukadeva Goswami is not a mental speculator or compromiser following the theory of as many conclusions, as many ways. Rather, he prays to the Lord only. He prays to Krishna only, invoking his transcendental pleasure. But that is the way of knowing the Lord. Next 22. प्रचोदितायेन पुरा सरस्वती वित्तन्वटाजस्य सतीं स्मृतिं हृदि स्वलक्षणा प्रादुरभूत् किलास्यता समय ऋषीणां ऋषभः प्रसीदताम्. May the Lord, who in the beginning of the creation amplified the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart and inspired him with full knowledge of creation and of his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, be pleased with me. Moreover, पुरा कल्पादौ अजस्य हृदि सतीं सृष्टि विषयां वितन्वता येन प्रचोदिता सती सरस्वती तस्य मुखतः किल प्रादुर्भूता. At the beginning of the kalpa, in the heart of the unborn Lord Brahma, the Supreme Lord, he gave uh, information pertaining to, instructions pertaining to creation that was revealed to him. And inspired by him, Saraswati, the goddess of learning, manifested from his faces Swani Lakshanani Shikshadyuktani Yasyasa. The goddess of learning manifested along with her unique characteristics, such as the Vedanga. There are 6 Vedangas. So the Vedas appeared along with the Vedangas. Rishinam Jnana Pradhanam Vishabhashreshtaha. And the Supreme Lord Krishna, he is the best of those who are rishis. A rishi is one who bestows Vedic knowledge, who reveals Vedic knowledge. So he is the best of the bestowers of Vedic knowledge. Achatad Varnana Samagri Mamasa Eva Ityaha Prajodite iti Dvabhya. And then in 2 verses, Shukadeva Goswami points out that he himself is everything that I need to describe. He says this in 2 verses. Yatha Brahmana Mukhad Vedam Pravartayamasa तथा मन्मुखात् स्वलीलाकथां सैव प्रवर्तयतु इति आशास्ते. He hopes that just as he revealed the Veda from the mouths of Brahma, like that, may he engage me in speaking out his own pastimes using my mouth. Swalakshana indicates that the Veda reveals Lord Shri Krishna to be the object of meditation, to be the object of worship. Yadaktam Bhagavata eva. And this is stated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. The 11th canto, 11.14.3. Mayadav Brahmane Prokto Dharmo Yasyam Madatmakaha. In the beginning of creation, I spoke Dharma, Vedic Dharma, to Brahma. That kind of Dharma which has me as its very self. As we have already discussed herein before, the Lord as a super soul of all living beings from Brahma to the insignificant ant endows all with the required knowledge, potent in every living being. A living being is sufficiently potent to possess knowledge from the Lord in the proportion of 50-64 or 78% of the full knowledge acquirable. This is also just to give an idea, because even these 50 out of 64 qualities, the Jivatmas can only attain them bindu bindu daya, only in the form of little drops of these qualities. Whereas Lord Krishna, he possesses these 50 qualities in the form of oceans. He has unlimited amounts of these qualities. Whereas the conditioned soul, even in this highest status of liberation, can only possess droplets of them. Since the living being is constitutionally part and parcel of the Lord, he is unable to assimilate all the knowledge that the Lord possesses himself. In the conditioned state, the living being is subject to forget everything after a change of body known as death. This potent knowledge is again inspired by the Lord from within the heart of every living being, and it's known as the awakening of knowledge, for it is comparable to awakening from sleep or unconsciousness. This awakening of knowledge is under the full control of the Lord, and therefore we find in the practical world different grades of knowledge in different persons. This awakening of knowledge is neither an automatic nor a material interaction. The supply source is the Lord Himself, Gyampati, or even Brahma is also subject to this regulation of the Supreme Creator. In the beginning of the creation, Brahma is born, first without any father and mother, because before Brahma, there were no other living beings. Brahma is born from the lotus which grows from the abdomen of the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and therefore he is known as Aja. Aja means unborn, literally. Uh, Unborn in the sense not born from any one material. The Madhvites, they interpret Aja to mean one who is born from Vishnu, and they refer to that scriptural statement, Akarena Uchyate Vishnu. The letter A refers to Vishnu. That is in the context of um, Om Namo Narayana. While discussing the meaning of Om Namo Narayana, there the Padma Purana says Om is built up, is derived from A, the letters A, U, and Ma. And that A refers to Vishnu. So based on that, they point out that Aja means one who is born from Vishnu. This Brahma or Aja is also a living being, part and parcel of the Lord, but being the most pious devotee of the Lord. Brahma is inspired by the Lord to create, subsequent to the main creation by the Lord. So the main creation is Sarga. Brahma's creation is called Visarga. We will come across these. Third canto will talk about creation. Fourth canto will talk about subsequent creation. The Sanskrit text of Bhagavatam. Through the agency of material nature. Therefore, neither the material nature nor Brahma is independent of the Lord. The material scientists can merely observe the reactions of the material nature without understanding the direction behind such activities, as a child can see the action of electricity without any knowledge of the powerhouse engineer. This imperfect knowledge of the material scientist is due to a poor fund of knowledge. The Vedic knowledge was therefore first impregnated within Brahma, and it appears that Brahma distributed the Vedic knowledge. Brahma is undoubtedly the speaker of the Vedic knowledge, but actually he was inspired by the Lord to receive such transcendental knowledge as it directly descends from the Lord. The Vedas are therefore called Apaurushaya, or not imparted by any created being. Before the creation, the Lord was there, Narayana Paravyakta. And therefore, the words spoken by the Lord are vibrations of transcendental sound. There is a gulf of difference between the two qualities of sound, namely Prakrita and Aprakrita. The physicists can deal only with the Prakrita sound, or sound vibrated in the material sky. And therefore, we must know that the Vedic sounds recorded in symbolic expressions cannot be understood by anyone within the universe unless and until one is inspired by the vibration of supernatural or Prakrita sound, which descends in the chain of disciplic succession from the Lord to Brahma, from Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyasa, and so on. No mundane scholar can translate or reveal the true import of the Vedic mantras or hymns. They cannot be understood unless one is inspired or initiated by the authorized spiritual master. The original spiritual master is the Lord Himself, and the succession comes down to the sources of parampara, as clearly stated in the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So, unless one receives the transcendental knowledge from the authorized parampara, one should be considered useless, nishpalamata, even though one may be greatly qualified in the mundane advancements of arts or science. These points are all derived, especially from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Achyutanam Prabhu.
Prabhuji, when Aja, the A was standing for Lord Vishnu, they said that in Om also they said A, U, Ma. A is for Lord Vishnu. Then U and Ma is for in Om.
The letter U is signifying Lakshmi. The letter Ma signifies the living entity as their eternal servant. All this appear even in our teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Okay.
Okay.
Shukadeva Goswami is praying to the Lord by dint of being inspired from within by the Lord, so that he could rightly explain the facts and figures of creation as inquired by Maharaj Parikshit. The spiritual master is not a theoretical speculator like the mundane scholar, but is Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam, expert in understanding the Vedic conclusion in disciplic succession and therefore constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. Text 23. Bhutair mahadbhir imapuro vipur nirmaya shete yadamushu purushaha bhumte gunan shodasha shodashatmakaha solankrishishta bhagavan vachamsi me. May the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enlivens the materially created bodies of the elements by lying down within the universe, and who in his Purusha incarnation causes the living being to be subjected to the 16 divisions of material modes, which are his generator, be pleased to decorate my statements. I think there's an editorial mistake here. 16 divisions of material modes, he being the generator of these 16. Be pleased to decorate my statements. Which are generated by him. That's how it should be. Idam swavachyam shrotrajana ahladinim shringar karnadi shobham prarthayate. Now, he prays the Lord for the beauty in the form of Shringara, Karuna, and various forms of rasa. There are various forms of rasa. Conjugal love, compassion, chivalry, and so on. We read about it in the Nectar of Devotion and in detail in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu also. Now, these are pleasing to the audience. And these are all subjects which are meant to be spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. So now he prays to the Lord that may the Supreme Lord decorate my statements with all of this. So may vachamsi alankrashishta alankarotu. May he decorate my statements. Anyasya vachasam anyonya alankara asambhavam ashankya tasya antaryamitam avishkaroti. He is thinking like this because he wants to reveal that the Supreme Lord is actually the innermost controller of everything. Therefore, he is capable of doing this. Yo mahadbhirbhute rimah purasha sharirani srishtva amushu purshu antaryami taya shete vasati. He is the one who previously created the bodies from the Mahatattva and other, from the various gross elements, And he himself, in the form of the inner controller, he resides within these bodies. Atra purusha samakhyam pramanayati yad yasmat purusha. So in that way, he is the Purusha. Purusha means one who resides within the Pur. Pur refers to the body. So he is also a Purusha, but only in this sense. He's not the Purusha like the conditioned soul who is the responsible agent for his happiness and unhappiness. Not like that. He is the inner controller as the witness. अतएव यह एकादशेन्द्रिय पंचभूत रूपान षोडश गुणान कला भुंक्ते प्रकाशयति पालयति इति वा. So he is the one who reveals and protects the 16 features of material existence. The 16 features of material existence are the 11 senses and the five gross elements. तदा तो आत्मनेपदम आर्ष्यम अत्र हेतुः यतः षोडशानाम् आत्मा चेतयिता. He is the one who is the very self or the impeller of these 16 Partheka. Natu atra jivatvam uchyate prarthana virodha. Now, this doesn't mean that the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself is the conditioned soul, because that would contradict his prayer to the Supreme Lord. Why would he have to pray to the Supreme Lord if he is himself the Supreme Lord? Ultimately. इदानीं मद्वचस्सु स्वसृष्टिषु एव स्वस्थित्यैव श्रोत्रजनत्वादिनीं शृङ्गारकृणादिरसध्वनि गुण अलङ्कारशोभां तेषां करोति इति आशास्ते. So now he hopes that the Supreme Lord will decorate his statements by situating himself within Shukadeva Goswami's words, which are also part of the Lord's own creation. And he will decorate his words with the beauty of the various rasas, Singara, Karuna, and so on, with the various features of suggestiveness. These are all considered very high class artistic expressions. When you do not express something directly, but you indicate it subtly. Dhvani guna, alankara shobha. So in that way, all these features of literary ornamentation, may he present it also. Samay vachamsi alankrashishta, eshu swayam nivasan alankarota. May the Supreme Lord himself reside within my words and decorate them. Yatha manushyadi sharirani srishtva, eshu swayam vasanneva tani sapalikaroti. Ityaha. Just as the Supreme Lord creates the bodies of human beings and so on, and he himself resides within them, and in that way, he makes them successful. Yo mahadbhirbhuta rivah puraha sharirani srishtva amushu purshu अंतर्यामितया शेते वसति अत्र पुरुष समाख्यां प्रमाणयति यदि अस्मात् पुरुषे अतएव यः एकादशेन्द्रिय पंचभूत रूपान् गुणान् भुङ्क्ते निर्लेप एव दृष्टैर् आस्वादयति. So the Supreme Lord, because he has entered into these bodies as the Antaryami, the inner controller, as a super soul, he causes by his glance, without touching, the manifestations of the modes in the form of the 16 elements. That means the 11 senses and the 5 gross elements. It causes the conditioned souls to taste them. Atra shleshena, indirectly, mad vachasavapi gunan aswadayan prasidatu iti bhavaha. So may he also relish, may he cause the relishing of his qualities in my words. Shodashanam atma cheteka swarteka tena sharirani nir atmakani vastra alankaradi yuktani api sadbhihi asprishyani yatha tha madvachamsi tad vinabhutani ma bhavati vibhava. Just as saintly persons will not touch bodies which are lifeless, even though those bodies are decorated with clothes, ornaments, and so on. So like that, may my words not be words without the Lord himself in his presence. May he be present. May he be present in my words and decorate them. Let it not be otherwise. Achyutanam. No, very, very important. This entire set of prayers is fabulous in this chapter. Achyutanam.
Prabhuji, that explanation or meaning of Om, can you please tell the reference, like from where it is
It's
mentioned?
in Padma Purana, in the description of Ashtakshara.
And another question is, Prabhu, in previous purport, when Srila Prabhupada write, unless one is inspired or initiated by a bona fide spiritual master. So is it because that knowledge will not be revealed, or Lord will not reveal himself to a person who has not served his devotees? Because of that, this initiation is so important.
Initiation is the first step. Accepting the instructions of the Vaishnava spiritual master is the next step. Following them within the boundaries of the Shastra and the teachings of predecessor scriptural authorities is the next step. These are all various steps. The first 20 items we have to examine. Out of 64 items, the first 20, these are preliminary. Essential preliminaries, unavoidable preliminaries. So all of them are important.
Okay.
Then after the 20, we come to 44. Out of the 44, 5 are most important. So just as before we eat, we clean our plates, we clean our hands, and then we get food. So like that, the first 20 cleans our hands and plates. So therefore, they are gateways. And then the last 5, they are the actual food. As a fully dependent devotee, Shukadeva Goswami, unlike a mundane man who is proud of his own capability, invokes the pleasure of the personality of Godhead, so that his statements may be successful and be appreciated by the hearers. See, this is another aspect here. That is why I'm saying this. This is called Rishikesha Prarthana, Rishikesha Vantana, prayers to Lord Rishikesha in this chapter. And every prayer of Shukadeva Goswami has a particular significance here, because he is now about to speak the Bhagavatam. And there are different aspects in speaking Bhagavatam. It's not just some theoretical, and I just am a scholar or I know and I'm just speaking something. It's not like that. It needs to have a particular effect. And Shukadeva Goswami is teaching us to surrender to Krishna. And one of the items of surrender to Krishna is Gotritve Varanama or Gotritve Prarthana, to pray to Lord Krishna. So here, in this particular verse, Shukadeva Goswami is praying that he present the subject matter in a manner that is appreciable. So it should be true, but it should also be interesting. It should be nicely presented. It should be something which hearers, the target audience, will appreciate. Therefore, there is all this consideration of literary ornamentation and so on. The devotee always thinks of himself as instrumental for anything successfully carried out, and he declines to take credit for anything done by himself. He always thinks that he is instrumental, that he is only instrumental, that he is not the cause for the success of his endeavors. There are 5 causes, and he considers himself to be one of the 4 instruments, and he considers Krishna to be the actual cause for the spiritual success of any of his endeavors. And he declines to take credit for anything done by himself. The godless atheist wants to take all credit for activities, not knowing that even a blade of grass cannot move without the sanction of the Supreme Spirit, the personality of Godhead. Shukadeva Goswami therefore wants to move by the direction of the Supreme Lord, who inspired Brahma to speak the Vedic wisdom. The truths described in the Vedic literatures are not theories of mundane imagination, nor are they fictitious, as a less intelligent class of men sometimes think. The Vedic truths are all perfect descriptions of the factual truth without any mistake or illusion. And Shukadeva Goswami wants to present the truths of creation, not as a metaphysical theory or philosophical speculation, but as the actual facts and figures of the subject, since he would be dictated to by the Lord exactly in the same manner as Brahmaji was inspired. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 15.15, the Lord is himself the father of the Vedanta knowledge, and it is he only who knows the factual purport of the Vedanta philosophy. So there is no greater truth than the principles of religion mentioned in the Vedas. Such Vedic knowledge of religion is disseminated by authorities like Shukadeva Goswami because he is a humble, devotional servitor of the Lord, who has no desire to become a self-appointed interpreter without authority. That is the way of explaining the Vedic knowledge, technically known as the parampara system, descending process. The intelligent man can see without mistake that any material creation, whether one's own body or a fruit or flower, cannot beautifully grow up without the spiritual touch. The greatest intelligent man of the world or the greatest man of science can present everything very beautifully only in so far as the spirit life is there and in so much as the spiritual touch is there. Therefore, the source of all truths is the Supreme Spirit and not gross matter as wrongly conceived by the gross materialist. We get information from the Vedic literature that the Lord Himself first entered the vacuum of the material universe, and thus all things gradually developed one after another. Similarly, the Lord is situated as localized Paramatma in every individual living being, in every individual being. Hence, everything is done by Him very beautifully. 16 principal creative elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, sky, and the 11 sense organs, first developed from the Lord Himself and were thereby shared by the living entities. Thus, the material elements were created by the enjoyment of the living entities. The beautiful arrangement behind all material manifestations is therefore made possible by the energy of the Lord, and the individual living entity can only pray to the Lord to understand it properly. Since the Lord is the supreme entity, different from Shukadeva Goswami, the prayer can be offered to Him. The Lord helps the living entity to enjoy the material creation, but the Lord is aloof from such false enjoyment. Shukadeva prays for the mercy of the Lord, not only for being helped personally and presenting the truth, but also for helping others to whom he would like to speak. 24. Namastasmai Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedhase Papurgyanam Ayam Saumya Yan Mukham Buru Asavam Yat Mukha Ampuruha Asavam Yan Mukham Buru Asavam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of Vasudeva, who compiled the Vedic scriptures. The pure devotees drink up the nectarian transcendental knowledge, dropping from the lotus mouth of the Lord. Sri Vyasam Namaskaroti Nama iti. Saumya Muktaha. Yasya Mukham Guru He Asava Makarandastam. Nama iti tikayam Sri Vyasam Namaskaroti iti. Papur ityadi Swarasya. Uttarawakyena tu Chatushloki Vaktaram iti ayati. This can also refer to the speaker of the Chatushloki Bhagavata. Gurum Shri Vyasam Namaskaroti. Shukadeva Goswami now offers his obeisances unto his spiritual master Shri Vyasadeva. We notice in the classical Sanskrit writings of the four Vaishnava lines, we see that the great authorities, when they write their Mangalacharana at the beginning of some commentary or some sub-commentary and so on, they first offer obeisances unto the Supreme Lord. Then they offer obeisances unto the next one, and finally it comes to their spiritual master. So here also we see Shukadeva Goswami. First he is offering obeisances unto Lord Krishna. Then he is offering obeisances unto his spiritual master. Vasudevaya, Tat Avataraya, the incarnation of Vasudeva. Vedhase, Yastra Kartre, who compiled the Vedic scriptures. Yan Mukha Vam Makarandam. The pure devotees drink up the nectarian transcendental knowledge dropping from the lotus-like mouth of the Lord. Yadva. Another meaning. Vasudevaya Krishnaya. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Shri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Saumyaha. The pure devotees refer to Krishna's beloved young gopis. Jnanamayam miti. Nritya, Gita, Vadya, Kala, Vaidagdhya, Rasa, Alankaradi, Jnanam. Sarvataha vilakshanam. Ashikshitam api yam pitva eva prapuhu. Vayam api tat anugaha tat apnuyam eva. Iti bhavaha iti rahasyam. So these pure devotees, Krishna's beloved cohort damsels, they drink the transcendental knowledge dropping from the lotus-like mouth of the Lord in the form of knowledge of dancing, singing, playing musical instruments, expertise in various arts, knowledge of the rasas, knowledge of literary ornamentations or other forms of ornamentations and so on, which are distinct, which are unique. And even though they have not been formally taught, just by just from the lotus mouth of the Lord, they have attained all of this knowledge. So, like that, we being the followers of those beloved, Krishna's beloved conjugal devotees, the young gopis in Krishna's Vrindavan Leela, may we also attain that knowledge. This is the implication. This is a confidential understanding. In pursuance of the specific utterance, Vedase, or the compiler of the system of transcendental knowledge, Srila Sridhar Swami has commented that the respectful obeisances are offered to Srila Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of Vasudeva. Srila Jiva Goswami has agreed to this, but Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has made a further advance, namely that the nectar from the mouth of Lord Krishna is transferred to his different consorts, and thus they learn the finer arts of music, dance, dressing, decorations, and all such things which are relished by the Lord. Such music, dance, and decorations enjoyed by the Lord are certainly not anything mundane, because the Lord is dressed in the very beginning as Para, or transcendental. Satyam Param Dhimahi Param. This transcendental knowledge, because he is transcendental, knowledge about him is also transcendent. This transcendental knowledge is unknown to the forgetful conditioned souls. Srila Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of the Lord, thus compiled the Vedic literature to revive the lost memory of the conditioned souls about their eternal relation with the Lord. This is this is 24. This is 24. Who is the incarnation of the Lord, thus compiled the Vedic literatures to revive the lost memory of the conditioned souls about their eternal relation with the Lord. One should therefore try to understand the Vedic scriptures or the nectar transferred by the Lord to his consorts in the conjugal humor from the lotus-like mouth of Vyasadeva or Shukadev. By gradual development of transcendental knowledge, one can rise to the stage of the transcendental arts of music and dance displayed by the Lord in his Rasalila. But without having the Vedic knowledge, one can hardly understand the transcendental nature of the Lord's rasa dance and music. The pure devotees of the Lord, however, can equally relish the nectar in the form of the Lord's profound philosophical discourses and in the form of kissing by the Lord in the rasa dance, as there is no mundane distinction between the two. I thought there was something in the chat box. Can we give some Shastric examples how the Lord gives intelligence to his pure devotees? Some Shastric examples. In Bhagavatam itself, we'll come across how Narada Muni understood. And later on, we'll see more. We'll see how Devahuti understood. Like that, we'll see many instances how from within the heart they themselves will understand. Various persons, even Yayati, quite persons whom we would never think actually developed any spiritual realization. When you go through Vedic literature outside of Bhagavatam, you would come to those conclusions. But Bhagavatam reveals that no, they also received spiritual realization from within the heart. How one's pure desire should be? One's pure desire should be this. Anyavilashita shonyam jnana karma dhyana vritam anukulyena krishnana shilanam bhakti uttama. It should always be our standard. And we should pray to Krishna that we should come up to that standard. It is said that actually the real enjoyer is the Supreme Lord Himself only. Then what is the purpose of creating living entity? To expand that enjoyment, to share that enjoyment. It's like, why do people have children? They have children because they want to expand their happiness. 25. It's 25. Etet devatma bhuvrajan नारदाय विपृच्छते वेदगर्भोभ्यधात् साक्षात् यदाह हरिरात्मनः. My dear king, Brahma, the firstborn, on being questioned by Narada, exactly apprised him on this subject, as it was directly spoken by the Lord to his own son, who was impregnated with Vedic knowledge from his very birth. There are very fine expressions in English on of particular concepts that are presented in Bhagavatam, Veda Garbha. One who is impregnated with Vedic knowledge from birth. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted an English edition of Bhagavatam, but he wanted it to be worked out from the root. It cannot just be a mechanical translation of the previous Acharya's commentary. He wanted it because you have to present it because the audience is so different. The English world is a completely different audience. It is a modern world actually, which is totally unfamiliar with the even essential concepts presented in the Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada very boldly he took up that and presented it. Idanim prashnottara taya Brahman Narada samvadam prastauti. Now he introduces the conversation between Lord Brahma and Narada in the form of Narada's questions and Brahma's answers. Utpatti samayeva veda garbhe yasya saha. Brahma was impregnated with Vedic knowledge right at the time of creation. Sakshad harir yadaha tadaha. And Lord Brahma taught Narada what Lord Hari personally taught him. Atmanaha iti atmanam brahmanam pratiti artha. What Lord Hari directly taught Brahma himself. As soon as Brahma was born from the abdominal lotus petals of Vishnu, he was impregnated with Vedic knowledge. Therefore, he is known as Vedagarbha or a Vedantist from the embryo. Without Vedic knowledge or perfect infallible knowledge, no one can create anything. All scientific knowledge and perfect knowledge are Vedic. One can get all types of knowledge from the Vedas. And as such, Brahma was impregnated with all perfect knowledge so that it was possible for him to create. Thus, Brahma knew the perfect description of creation as it was exactly appraised to him by the Supreme Lord Hari. Brahma, on being questioned by Narada, told Narada exactly what he had heard directly from the Lord. Narada again told exactly the same thing to Vyasa. Vyasa also told Shukadev exactly what he heard from Narada. And Shukadev was going to repeat the same statements as he heard them from Vyasa. That is the way of Vedic understanding. The language of the Vedas can be revealed only by the above mentioned disciplic succession and not otherwise. There is no use in theories. Knowledge must be factual. There are many things that are complicated and one cannot understand them unless they are explained by one who knows. The Vedic knowledge is also very difficult to know. It must be learned by the above mentioned system. Otherwise, it is not at all understood. Sukadeva Goswami therefore prayed for the mercy of the Lord so that he might be able to repeat the very same message that was spoken directly by the Lord to Brahma or what was directly spoken by Brahma to Narada. Therefore, the statements of creation explained by Sukadeva Goswami are not at all, as the mundaners suggest, theoretical, but are perfectly correct. One who hears these messages and tries to assimilate them gets perfect information of the material creation. The idea is this. The Vedas are vast, both in terms of Shruti and Smriti. To present the exact essence of the Vedas, the actual import of the Vedas, in the midst of so many controversial interpretations of the Vedic philosophies. Like nowadays, we have so many different philosophies: Kevaladvaita, Shakta, Tantric, Vaishnava, Shaiva. All kinds of interpretations are there. There are even in a way interpretations of the Vedas outside of Vedanta school. So there are all kinds of these schools have always existed perpetually. So if Shukadeva Goswami is going to present the correct understanding of the Veda using the format of a Purana, then it has to be exactly the way Lord Krishna explained that essence to Brahma, the way Brahma understood it and presented it to Narada, the way Narada understood it and presented it to Vyasa, and so on. So that is what Shukadeva Goswami is praying to Krishna for. To find the cause of all causes. Next one. Narada Uvacha. Deva Deva Namastestu. Bhuta Bhavana Purvaja. Tad Vijanihi Yad Jnanam Atma Tattva Nidarshanam. Sri Narada Muni asked Brahmaji, O chief amongst the demigods, O firstborn living entity, I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please tell me that transcendental knowledge which specifically directs one to the truth of the individual soul and the super soul. Panchame Narade Natha Prishta Srishtyadi Vakyajaha Are Leelam Virat Srishtim Kala Karma Adi Shakti. In the fifth chapter, Narada inquires about creation and so on, and the unborn Lord Brahma speaks about them. He describes the pastime of Lord Hari uh, in creating the universal form using time, karmic reactions, and so on, which are all his potencies. Naradaya Viprichyate Vedagarbho Abhyadat Yuktam. So Narada Muni was asking Lord Brahma. It was already stated that uh, Lord Brahma, who was impregnated with Vedic knowledge right from the beginning, he explained it. So this is a follow-up to that. Tatra Narada Prashamaha. So he reports Narada's question, Deva Deva. He Bhuta Bhavana. Ateva Sarvesham Purvaja. Anade. O generator of all living beings. O firstborn, which means O beginningless one. Jayate Anena iti Jnanam Tat Sadhanam Yat Tad Vijani. Please explain that knowledge, which specifically directs towards transcendental realization. That means, please give me that kind of knowledge which can reveal this. Visheshena Gyapaya Ityartha. Please give me specific information about this. Katham Bhutam Atmatattvam Trandrishyate Yenata. That through which one can correctly understand the truth about the self. Pantame Naradam Praha Tattvanam Srishtim Atmabhu Tair Virajascha Tatpadadyangair Bhuradi Kalpanam. In the fifth chapter, the self-born Lord Brahma, he speaks to Narada about the creation of the basic elements of material existence. And with those elements, the Viraja, the universal form, and how it is contemplated upon, for instance, by considering the earthly planetary system to be a part of his body and so on. Like to contemplate on the Lord's lotus feet as the hellish planetary systems and so on. Bhutani bhavayanti srijanti iti bhuta bhavana marichadaya urvajaha asmad bhrataraha yasmat etatha bhuta. You are bhuta bhavana, the generator of all living beings. You are actually the generator of all the living beings. And additionally, all the ones who had taken birth before me, such as Marichi, they have come from you. Therefore, you are Urvaja, the firstborn. Atmanoho, Paramatma Jivatmanos Tattva Nidarshanam, Tattva Gyapakam, Yagyanam, Tat Vijanini, Visheshena Janas. You specifically know about the truth concerning the two souls, the Paramatma and the Jivatma. The Vyapaya Itiva. You specifically know is an indication that please tell me this. Please impart it unto me. The perfection of the parampara system or the path of disciplic succession is further confirmed. In the previous chapter, it has been established that Brahmaji, the firstborn living entity, received knowledge directly from the Supreme Lord, and the same knowledge was imparted to Narada, the next disciple. Narada asked to receive the knowledge, and Brahmaji imparted it upon being asked. Therefore, asking for transmitting knowledge from the right person and receiving it properly is the regulation of the disciplic succession. This process is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita 4.2. The inquisitive student must approach a qualified spiritual master to receive transcendental knowledge by surrender, submissive inquiries, and service. Knowledge received by submissive inquiries and service is more effective than knowledge received in exchange for money. A spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from Brahma and Narada has no demand for dollars and cents. A bona fide student has to satisfy him by sincere service to obtain knowledge of the relation and nature of the individual soul and the super soul. Knowledge, we should always remember, does not only refer to theoretical knowledge, it refers to information. That is the first level of knowledge acquisition. Then understanding. That is the second milestone. Understanding, acquiring understanding, acquisition of understanding. First is acquisition of knowledge, then acquisition of understanding, then acquisition of realization. Next, to yad rupam yad adhishtanam yatasrishtam idam prabho yat samstam yat param yatchai tat tattvam vadatatvatah. My dear father, please describe factually the symptoms of this manifest world. What is its background? How is it created? How is it conserved? And under whose control is all this being done? What are the symptoms of this manifestation? Yad rupam. Yat adhisthana. What is its background? Yataha srishtam idam. From where is this world created? Prabhu, O Lord, O my father. Yat samstham. In which is it conserved? Yat param. Under whom is it under control? Yachita tattvam. Symptoms. Please describe all of these truths in terms of their symptoms, factually. Each of these questions is important. We will keep coming across references to these. Upalakshana bhutam vishvam eva atma jnana sadhanam. It is this world that is an instrument to help us attain knowledge about spirituality. And knowledge of this world is an indication that one should acquire all kinds of knowledge that is relevant to attaining knowledge of the self. Ataha tad vishesham pruchati. Therefore, he is asking specific questions. Yad rupam yena rupyate prakashyate. Who is revealing this material manifestation, Vishwa. Vishwa means the world, the universe, the world that we perceive. Yat adhishthanam, yat ashrayam. Who is the shelter of this? Yataha yena srishtam. Who, by whom is it created? Yat samstham. Into whom does it merge at the time of dissolution? Yat param, yat adhinam. Under whom is it functioning? Yat cheti, yat atmakam. Who is the very self of this uh, manifestation? Swataha sat karanataha va. Is it by itself, or does it have um, sat, or the supreme existence, the supreme Lord as its cause? Tasya tattvam yatharthyam tattvato vada. Please tell me factually the truth concerning all this. Inquiries by Narada Muni on the basis of factual cause and effect appears very reasonable. The atheists, however, put forward many self-made theories without any touch of cause and effect. That means logical cause and logical effect. The manifested world, as well as the spirit soul, is still unexplained by the godless atheists through the medium of experimental knowledge, although they have put forward many theories manufactured by their fertile brains. Contrary to such mental speculative theories of creation, however, Narada Muni wanted to know all the facts of creation in truth and not by theories. Transcendental regarding the soul and the super soul includes knowledge of the phenomenal world and the basis of its creation. In the phenomenal world, three things are factually observed by any intelligent man: the living beings, the manifest world, and the ultimate control over them. The intelligent man can see that neither the living entity nor the phenomenal world are creations of chance. The symmetry of creation and its regulative actions and reactions suggest the plan of an intelligent brain behind them. And by genuine inquiry, one may find out the ultimate cause with the help of one who knows them factually. Okay, so I'll stop with that. Okay. Panchayat Guru Vishnu Pasan Dikhe Vidya Patana Pavane Pyo Vishnu Pyo Namo Namaha.